It's directly cut outside the Kochi International Airport in Kerala. A huge wave of relief has swept the country, especially big relief coming in for the loved ones of the 46 nurses that were stranded in Iraq. Well, they are all home safe. We can confirm for our viewers, the Air India chartered flight has just touched down just about 10 minutes back at Kochi International Airport, and all 46 nurses have deboarded. Well, the initial visuals of them already filtering in, you can see on your television screen. Oommen Chandy, the Chief Minister of Kerala, also there waiting for them to receive them, and of course a massive reception been planned. Well, these visuals that we just showed you is of the nurses coming out. Well, they're going to be picking up their luggage, and from there on a massive reception planned outside the Kochi International Airport. I'd like to cut across at this point of time our editor South, T.S. Sudhir, on the phone line with us. T.S., a huge wave of relief at this point of time, quite visible on the Chief Minister of Kerala as well when our colleague Rohini spoke to him. All right, we seem to be having an audio problem with our editor South, T.S. Sudhir. We're going to try and re-establish connect. But these visuals that you can see on your television screens at this point of time, the latest that we are getting in is that all 46 nurses are safe. They are back home. The plane that they were in, the Air India chartered flight, touched down about 15 minutes ago at the Kochi International Airport. All 46 nurses have disembarked, and now the Chief Minister alongside other family members await them with a grand reception. Editor South, T.S. Sudhir, on the phone line with us. T.S., a huge wave of relief pretty much sweeping across India, diplomatic coup of sorts, and that relief was quite apparent on the Chief Minister of Kerala's face when our colleague Rohini spoke to him. All right, we seem to be having an audio problem. We're going to try and reconnect to T.S. Sudhir, our editor South. But the latest that we can tell our viewers is that all 46 nurses have disembarked. They, as we speak, are being received by the Chief Minister of Kerala there. He did speak to my colleague Rohini Swami, and the first thing that he said that this was pretty much a diplomatic coup pulled off by the External Affairs Ministry. He did give credit to Ms. Sushma Swaraj, who he said was constantly in touch with her counterparts in UAE, Qatar, to try and put pressure on ISIS to release our 46 nurses. Once again, I'm going to try and build contact with T.S. Sudhir, our editor South. T.S., we did see a huge wave of relief writ across the Chief Minister of Kerala's face when he spoke to Rohini Swami. Understandably so, isn't it?
Absolutely. In fact, for the last 3.5 weeks, Preeti, these 46 nurses, 45 of them from Kerala, one of them from Tamil Nadu, have been stuck in Tikrit, the war zone in Iraq. And the situation only got worse when they were taken into captivity. They were taken hostage by the ISIS militants. And everyone was really keeping their fingers crossed. But all credit to the back-channel diplomacy undertaken by the Ministry of External Affairs rather quietly. Also, the Kerala Chief Minister, Oommen Chandy, was there in Delhi for the last 48 hours, trying to put pressure, trying to impress upon them the fact that the Kerala government was expected to be seen as acting and doing something concrete to get those nurses back home safely. In the end, the back-channel diplomacy and all the efforts undertaken by the Ministry of External Affairs really bearing fruit, with all those nurses being brought back safely. So in that sense, a huge sigh of relief, a huge diplomatic coup, definitely for the government of India.
But the battle quite not done yet, Sudhir, because of course it's wonderful news that all 46 nurses are back home. Initial visuals of them already we are airing for our viewers. You can see the first lot coming out. But Sudhir, it is a diplomatic coup, we understand that, but also the job not quite done. 39 of our people still stranded in Iraq.
Absolutely. The job definitely not done. Those 39 youth, majority of them from Punjab, obviously there is a lot of concern about the fact that the militants haven't released them. They have been held hostage for more than 2 weeks now. So obviously the government of India will have to develop its efforts to ensure that they are released at the earliest. A lot of back-channel diplomacy being undertaken through a lot of interlocutors in the neighboring countries, and also people who are friendly with India within Iraq. So, but Obviously, the Ministry of External Affairs does understand that it's a conflict zone. The Iraqi government is not entirely in control, so that really makes the job that much more difficult for the interlocutors to actually speak to these militants and secure the release of these 39 Indians.
Do stay on with us, Sudhir. Initial visuals of jubilant shots there coming outside the Kochi International Airport. The first lot of the nurses coming out, being received with garlands, flowers. We can also hear chants there. Rohini Swami is in the thick of action. We're also going to try and build contact with her. She did speak to the Chief Minister of Kerala a short while back. The first thing he did say was giving credit to Sushma Swaraj, the External Affairs Minister, for carrying out what he called was nothing short of a diplomatic coup to get all our 46 nurses back home. We do hope that similar visuals play out soon when the other stranded Indians, most of them from Punjab, do come back home as well. But what we can in fact confirm at this point of time is that all 46 nurses are back home. They are safe. You can see visuals of them coming out and reuniting with their families. We're going to try and build contact with Rohini Swami, who's right in the thick of action, getting us the very latest. But T.S. Sudhir, our editor South, is still with us. T.S., you and your team have been reporting on this story ever since, this ordeal broke out. We've been speaking to the nurses, their family members. It's been a long, long fight for them. And now suddenly, with everything is now okay, you can see them come out. The scenes of jubilation unmatched.
Absolutely. In fact, this entire 3-week-long ordeal has been a mixed bag of emotions because initially, in fact, a majority of those nurses did not want to come back home because they realized that they had taken huge amount of loans back home to actually go to Iraq and work there as nurses. So what happens to them when they actually come back, because they will have to repay these loans to the moneylenders and to the various banking institutions from where they had secured those loans. That is something which the Kerala government perhaps will do something to help out. The Kerala Chief Minister, when he spoke to Rohini, not really committing himself on that, but yes, there are voices within the Kerala government who want to reach out and help them in some regard, because this also exposes the fact that there isn't much of monetary compensation for this kind of a vocation back home in Kerala, which is why they take this huge risk of actually working in an extreme conflict zone like Iraq. So that is something which the Kerala government will have to think about. Also the fact that there are 137 other passengers on that special flight from Iraq to India. 46 of them, of course, have got off at Kochi. There will be many others who will be getting off at Hyderabad. Many of them are actually workers from the Telangana and Andhra Pradesh states who are working in Kirkuk. So what is the kind of plight that they have undertaken? Because a lot of focus has been on these 46 Indian nurses because they were trapped in the war zone. What has been the plight of the several other Indian workers who are also working there? That's what we'll know when those 70-odd people will disembark at Hyderabad airport in about a couple of hours from now.
That's what's happening right now, isn't it, Sudhir? Because that aircraft which was carrying these 46 nurses will now leave the Kochi International Airport and make its way to Hyderabad.
The flight total had about 183 Indians. 46 of them, as we said, have got off at Kochi. It will thereafter go to Hyderabad, and from Hyderabad it will go to Delhi, which will also have some Ministry of External Affairs officials. But yes, as I said, there are 70-odd workers who are from Telangana and Andhra Pradesh states who were also rescued from Iraq, several of them again in the war zone. But yes, not like the Indian nurses, they were not taken hostage. So the focus has largely been over the last 3 weeks on these nurses because they were the ones who were really sending out SOS messages because their hospital premises was being bombed. They were taken hostage by the ISIS militants. But for the several hundreds of Indians who are still caught trapped in that war zone in Iraq, it's going to be an extremely difficult time till the Indian government manages to rescue the last one of them out.
And you're right there, because it's been a roller coaster ride. It was a roller coaster ride for the loved ones back home of these nurses. They're constantly, some days not getting news, some days getting some news, and of course now seeing them in flesh and blood, their daughters, sisters and spouses there. But as T.S. Sudhir is pointing out, there are many Indians still trapped in Iraq, and diplomatic efforts right now on to bring them back as well. But to give our viewers perspective, the latest bit of breaking news that we're getting in, we can confirm for our viewers that all 46 nurses back home safe. They have landed at the Kochi International Airport. You can already see visuals of them filing out, meeting their loved ones. What we do also know is on board were 2 officials from the Ministry of External Affairs, and from here on the flight will move on to Hyderabad, where others will disembark, and from there on all the way to Delhi. All right, those visuals that you see on your television screen, one of the nurses being received with garlands and flowers. Most of them, as TS, our editor South, has been pointing out, are heavily in debt, not from more than from 2 to 8 lakh rupees. They did not want to come home initially, but then, of course, ultimately extremely happy to be back home and to be back home.
You were anxious when you were called for not being, you were not able to speak to your family back in India.
Yeah.
Last 48 hours, can you just share what was your experience in last 48 hours?
From Rohini Swami, she's also going to be sending us some reactions, but TS Sudhir is still with us at this point of time, our editor South. TS, what's quite interesting here is because even the kind of reactions by the nurses that have been coming in ever since that they've been freed by the ISIS is that they were not quite hurt by the militants. They were given food, they were given shelter. So that ambiguity, whether or not Indians are at risk, somewhere down the line, there is a bit, one can take heart in that.
Well, in fact, when they were at the hospital in Tikrit, we were told through phone calls made by those nurses, 2 headlines today, is that the militants were constantly telling them to board a bus and be taken to some other place out of Tikrit, perhaps to Mosul. But they were being by the Indian embassy there not to actually listen to whatever the ISIS militants do. And only when the militants threatened them that they will bomb the hospital that the nurses rather reluctantly boarded the bus and were in fact taken hostage by the militants. But yes, the nurses confirming that they were not harmed in any way by those militants. They were kept in a dormitory kind of a room without any electricity, and of course they did not have any way of contacting their families back home. Initially, it was believed that perhaps the militants want to use those nurses to treat some of their own injured people among the militants, but that was not to be. And finally, the Ministry of External Affairs interlocutors managing to convince the militants that they should release the Indian nurses. Also, huge outcry back home, and there was pressure mounting on the central and the Kerala government that they should be seen to be doing something concrete, because already 39 Indians have been in captivity of the militants for a long time, and if some good news wasn't coming on these 46 Indian nurses, there would have been a huge national outcry.
And more so because till now, TS, there has been ambiguity on how the ISIS will treat Indians there, because they really haven't made a public political statement on the same. So somewhere down the line, it does seem, because we still have our men stranded in Iraq, that one can take heart that maybe they would not be hurt.
Well, yes, the fact that they have released these 46 Indian nurses safely without causing them any harm does give some hope to the Ministry of External Affairs that they can actually hope to negotiate with the militants through a team of interlocutors, because the Indian policy does not really permit them to talk directly, negotiate directly with the militants. So that they have managed to secure the release of these 46 nurses does give them definitely some hope, given the fact that these 39 Indian laborers have been in their custody for more than 2 weeks now. But yes, there is a lot of ambiguity about what really will be the how these ISIS militants actually look at India, what would their stand of the India. But yes, at the moment, the Indian government does not have much to go by, except for the fact that they have achieved a breakthrough as far as the nurses are concerned.
TS, the channels that the External Affairs Ministry is working through is pretty much through our counterparts, where Sushma Swaraj would be working through, would be her counterpart through Saudi Arabia, Qatar and UAE. Isn't that true?
Yes, there are some neighboring countries of Iraq who have been kind of actually roped in to help in securing this release of these nurses. Apart from that, there are some people who have business in that region, some of them actually having their roots back home in Kerala, who have also helped in actually negotiating with the militants or people close to the militants in securing the release. And the fact that they have managed to achieve breakthrough actually speaks a lot about the back-channel diplomacy of the Ministry of External Affairs of the Government of India.
Do stay on with us, TS. The latest that for our viewers who are just joining us, well, the visuals that you see outside this chaos is right outside the Kochi International Airport. And why so? Because these are scenes of jubilation. All 46 nurses stranded in Iraq are back home and they are safe. All of them now being escorted out by their family members. You can see smiles pasted on each and every face. It's been a roller coaster of emotions over the last 3 weeks for the family members back home, not quite knowing whether their loved ones would be back home safe. 5:30 today morning, we did see family members lining up at the Kochi International Airport. There were indications that the flight from Erbil, Kurdistan, would land in Kochi at about 6:30 a.m. The flight did get delayed, but at about noon, about half an hour earlier, the flight landed in Kochi and all 46 nurses are safe. They were received by none else but then the Chief Minister of Kerala, Mr. Ruman Chandi, who first of all came and gave credit to the Ministry of External Affairs, thanking Sushma Swaraj for what he called was nothing short of a diplomatic coup. We are going to try and build connect with my colleague Rohini Swami, who's on the ground getting us the very latest, but one can of course take heart and be relieved that all our nurses are back home and they're back home safe. T.S. Sudhir, our editor South, is still on the phone line with me. I'd like to cut across to him. T.S., you and your team have been tracking this entire ordeal for the last 3 weeks, and it's been nothing less than a roller coaster of emotions for the loved ones back home, not quite knowing whether these nurses would ever return back home safe.
Absolutely. In fact, the manner in which they were actually pressurized to actually leave the hospital.
All right, we're going to try and connect to TS in a short while from now, but reactions coming in. Huge relief, a writ on every face that is coming out from the Kochi International Airport. There were chants of jubilation as well witnessed a short while back. The nurses filing out, all 46 of them. To give our viewers perspective, there were other Indians also on board this particular chartered flight from Air India, which took off from Erbil, Kurdistan. 137 other Indian nationals, some of them will disembark in Hyderabad, and then the flight will make its way back to Delhi from Kochi. Well, you can see happy reunion shots. It does bring a smile to every face when one sees shots like that. This young girl, a nurse, was in captivity just a short while back and now happy to be reunited with her family.
All
right, we're going to keep trying and getting our viewers the latest reactions coming in, but one can surely say happy reactions, scenes of jubilation recorded outside the Kochi International Airport. All 46 Indian nurses back home and they are safe. A diplomatic coup of sort for the Indian government. Things looked really worrisome just 2 days back when these nurses were taken from the hospital to an undisclosed location, probably in Mosul, and that was what was confirmed later. And 2 days since then, the nurses are back home. A diplomatic coup for the Ministry of External Affairs, but the job only half done because we have 39 confirmed Indians, construction workers, mostly from Punjab, who are still stuck in Iraq and are in captivity of the militant ISIS group. All right, I'd like to cut across to our editor South, T.S. Sudhir, who's joining us at this point of time. T.S., scenes of jubilations being witnessed, these nurses coming out, a smile pasted on each face. Things looked very different 2 days back, didn't they?
Absolutely. In fact, it was more than the any kind of physical discomfort or harm that was caused to them by the ISIS militants. It was the fact that they were in a war zone, they were taken hostage, they were in captivity of these militants, and anything could go wrong. The Ministry of External Affairs, the government of India was in no way in control of what could happen in Iraq. The Iraqi government itself not really in control of the entire country. So in that sense, it was really on a razor's edge. And the fact that the Ministry of External Affairs, with the help of several interlocutors, many of them neighbors of Iraq, many of them people with business interests in the region, managed to convince the militants to actually 46 Indian nurses, does really give hope even vis-a-vis the 39 Indian laborers who are still in captivity in Iraq for over 2 weeks now. So that does give them hope that they would be managed to secure the release of those 39 Indian laborers as well, many of them actually from Punjab.
Well, you're right there, and their families, completely distraught, would be looking at these visuals in a bittersweet fashion, because they can take heart that there are Indians like their own who are stuck in Iraq coming back home, but hoping as well that soon they'd also see their loved ones. We're going to keep reporting on this story. My colleague Rohini Swami is right in the thick of action. She also spoke to the Chief Minister of Kerala, Mr. Ruman Chandi, who the first thing what he said was he gave credit to the Ministry of External Affairs and Sushma Swaraj for carrying out nothing short of a diplomatic coup. We'll also keep getting reactions, scenes of jubilation where the loved ones who've been waiting caught in complete tumultuous turmoil over the last 3 weeks now, reuniting with their loved ones. Constant coverage on that story. Our editor South T.S. Sudhir on the phone line with us. Rohini Swami right in the thick of action at the Kochi International Airport, as all 46 of our nurses, well, they are back home and they're back home safe.